And welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we're doing something a little different. We are doing a bacon and scallop fritter. Now, this is sort of a hybrid of a bunch of different things. I mean, everyone loves bacon wrapped scallops, and this is sort of like that, wrapped in a hushpuppy. We're going to be using some corn flour and cornmeal, and it's going to be a little interesting. So here's our ingredients. We have these beautiful scallops that have been drained and dried. We have a little bit of salt, some dried mustard, some parsley, some flour, some cornmeal, some corn flour, some bacon, ours is still frozen, and a little bit of carbonated water as well, some sparkling water. We're also going to be using an egg in the batter, but let's start off with getting our bacon ready. So we're going to cut this into lardon, basically. We're just going to slice this into pretty small pieces. And ours is frozen, which makes it kind of easy to cut, honestly. We're going to toss that into a nice hot pan and get that cooking. Now, we don't want it to get super crispy. We want it to have a little bit of bend. We want it to be still a little bit soft, because we are going to be cooking this again when it hits the hot oil in the batter. So you can see here, they're still a little bit soft. We're going to deglaze that with just a tiny bit of whatever flavorful thing of your choice. We used a little tiny bit of vermouth. You could use liquor, you could use cognac, you could use bourbon if you want. You could use stock, whatever you prefer for that. We just want to get a little bit of extra flavor. And remember that bacon grease is very useful in a kitchen environment, so do hold on to your bacon grease. You can always save it and use it in something else later. But we are going to drain these pieces of bacon, the lardon, and again, we don't want it to get super crispy because it's going to cook again. We also want it to cool down a little bit, so we're going to set that aside while we're doing our batter mixture. So we're going to start off here. We're mixing our dry ingredients. We've got the flour, the cornmeal, the corn flour, a little bit of salt, as well as our dried mustard. And we're just going to mix this together until it's all well combined, until it's good and uniform. You want to make sure that there's no lumps or anything in there. So we're just going to get that all mixed together until it's nice and even. And that doesn't take very long. It's not a whole lot of things. So we're just going to let that mix together and until it looks nice and even like this. Meanwhile, we're going to get our parsley ready. We're going to cut the stems off and get some leaves out of there. And then we want to chop those up as well. So we're going to cut this up pretty finely. Some of this is going to go into the recipe, and then some of it's just going to be for garnish on top. So you want to make sure it's pretty fine. So here you can see Chef Caleb is giving it a nice chop. All the amounts, of course, are going to be in the description below. So into our mixture, here's the egg that I neglected to film in the opening, but we are going to add one egg in there. And just break that up and mix it in a little bit. Now it's going to be not enough liquid to take all of that flour, but now we're going to start adding in our sparkling water. And you can use regular water for this. You do want to make sure it's cold, but we're using sparkling water just to give it that little extra bit of fluff and a little bit of aeration in there. So when it fries, it's going to be a little bit more light and crispy. So you want to stir that together until it's all well combined and you don't see any lumps. Now it's going to foam up at first, but we're going to just give that a little mix to make sure it's all well combined. Now, if you see a few little lumps in there, that's fine. You want it as smooth as you can. You can see it's quite a loose batter. That's fine, honestly. This is going to be fine, which is why we're going to be shallow frying this in some very, very hot oil and not deep frying it. So we're going to add in our ingredients. So in goes the scallops, in goes the bacon that is now about room temperature, and in goes a big chunk of that parsley. And we're just going to mix that together until, again, everything is well combined and is distributed throughout the entire batter. And you can still see that it's quite thin. We're going to pop that right into that really hot oil. And it's going to stick together. There are going to be a few little bits that float off the sides. That's fine. It's mostly going to stick together, and that's going to make our fritters. It is a fairly delicate batter. So do be careful. You want to add that into that hot oil very, very carefully. So once you get some color creeping up the sides, it's time to flip these over. Now be careful, because they're oily, they're going to be slippery. So it's going to take a little bit of effort to flip them over. Try not to get too much of the batter on the side of your cast iron or whatever you're using to fry these in. And there you go. So we're just going to flip those over. And then once they get that nice color on the bottom, they're done. So those scallops should be cooked all the way through. Any bacon that's touching the outside will be nice and crispy, and the stuff that's on the inside will still have a little bit of bite to it. And then you're going to set those aside, and you honestly don't really need to salt this. The bacon is salty. We added a little bit of salt to the batter, so it doesn't need a whole lot of extra salt when it comes out of the oil. If you find it's not quite as flavorful as you want, or it does need seasoning, you can, but we didn't need to. Well, we threw together a little tartar sauce there, you can see, and it came out really delicious. Those scallops were cooked perfectly. It didn't take very long to cook them. They were very short cooking time because the batter was quite thin. It had that little bit of corn texture and taste like a hush puppy, and they came out really, really well. So we hope you'll give this one a try. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.